Today I'm going to show you an alternative way to make a shawl tab or a garter tab at the beginning of a shawl. It's similar to the cast on that you might use for a toe-up sock. So you might already be familiar with the cast on, but it ends up going a little bit differently. So the first thing we're going to do is have both our needles facing to the left, and we're going to have our yarn in a little bit of a slingshot hold where we have our working yarn, which is attached to the ball, over to the right, and it's over my index finger, and then the tail of the yarn is over my thumb and heading to the left, and then I'll hold both strands of the yarn with the rest of my fingers. I need to twist the yarn just once with my top needle, so I will place the needle down on the yarn and give it a little twist. That's my first stitch, and we'll be casting on a total of 6 stitches, 3 on the top needle and 3 on the bottom needle. I've already got 1 on the top needle, as you can see there. So we need to give the bottom needle a stitch now too, and I'll be doing that with the yarn that's on my index finger. So I will take that yarn underneath both needles, over the top of the bottom needle and down the center of both needles. So now you can see I've got a stitch on the top needle and a stitch on the bottom needle. Now I need to make another stitch on the top needle, so I will do that with the yarn that's over my thumb. So I take the yarn underneath both needles, over the top of the top needle and down the center of both needles. I've got 2 stitches on the top needle and 1 on the bottom needle. I need to make another stitch on the bottom needle, and I'll do that with the yarn that's over my index finger. So I take that yarn underneath both needles, over the top of the bottom needle and down the center of both needles. I need to make another stitch on the top needle, so I will take the yarn underneath both needles, over the top of the top needle and down the center of both needles. And to make my final stitch on the bottom needle, I'll take this top yarn underneath both needles, over the top of the bottom needle and down the center of both needles. Now you can see I've got 3 stitches on the top needle and 3 stitches on the bottom needle for a total of 6 stitches. And now I'm going to turn my work over. So I'm going to flip the needles over like that. You can see that these stitches, the last 2 stitches, aren't actually anchored. So we want to give our tail and our working yarn a little twist so that they are anchored. We can just ignore that tail yarn now. Make sure we're not knitting with our tail. I'm sure everyone's done that before. Now we want to gently pull our bottom needle out so that we can bring it around and start knitting the stitches on the top needle. So gently pull that bottom needle out, and we're going to knit these 3 stitches that are on the top needle with our working yarn. And you just knit them as normal. In the pattern that I'm working on at the moment, my pattern asks me to knit 10 rows in my garter tab. So that is my first row, so that's 1. And now, normally if you were doing this type of cast on, you would be working in rounds, for example, in the toe of a sock. But in this garter tab, we're not working in the round. We're only going to be working on these 3 stitches. We won't knit these 3 stitches on the cable for now. So I'm going to turn my work over so that I can knit back on those stitches. I'll just get that tail out of the way. That was my first row. This is my second. So that's 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So after you've knit the 10 rows, you might have more or fewer rows in your garter tab, whatever your pattern says. Then we've got this situation happening where we've got our little tab here and we've got our 3 stitches for the other end of our tab down here. And now we need to pick up stitches along the side of our tab. I need to pick up 5 in my pattern. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're the stitches I'm going to pick up. So just making sure I really do have enough. So I'm going to do 1. Bring it closer to the camera and hopefully you can see where I'm picking these up. 2. They should be reasonably easy to see. Sometimes it can be easier with a longer cable. So they're presenting themselves quite easily. These little garter bumps here right on the edge. 3. 4. And I've got one last one. She's sitting right down here, getting a bit twisted because my cable's a bit awkwardly short. 5. And then I've got the 3 stitches that were cast on initially over here. So I can push my needle back into this cast on. I'll just get that tail out of the way. So now I'm just going to knit the 3 stitches that were on the end of my original cast on. And then I have everything knit for my garter stitch tab. And I should have 11 stitches at the end of this. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and I do. And there is my lovely little garter tab to begin my shawl. Hopefully this video is helpful. And this is actually the right side of the garter tab and my tail has ended up here. So I'll just pull it through to the other side so it ends up in the right spot. And as you can see, this makes a really nice smooth edge for the beginning of your shawl. And I hope that helped.